Long before the jungle was mapped, it was listened to. Before borders were carved through roots and rivers, stories moved like mist carried by the wind, buried in soil waiting. Some treasures are made of gold, others of memory, betrayal and silence. They weren't the first to chase it, they won't be the last. Years from now, a video will surface. Blurred edges, mud-caked boots, a half-dug grave. A voice behind the lens said, "We shouldn't be here." But the story doesn't start there. It begins in shadow. With a letter, long unopened, a secret, older than both of them. And a choice neither Cheng nor Leah meant to make. The jungle remembers. And now, it calls again. Whispers of Long Tien. Most nights are quiet in all the wrong ways. Inside a low-lit apartment, camera gear lies scattered across the floor. Tripods, softboxes, dead batteries. Ramen cups are stacked high beside unopened mail and overdue bills. This is Cheng's world now. A struggling YouTuber, once hopeful, is now hanging on by threads. His channel history, combat analysis, deep dives into forgotten wars, once drew a loyal crowd. Now, the views barely trickle in. The laptop hums with quiet indifference. Red arrows, falling numbers. He stares at them like they hold the answer to a question he forgot how to ask. On the TV, a war documentary plays silent but violent. Muzzle flashes flicker across his face, casting shadows into already sunken eyes. The tripods stand like weary soldiers. The room doesn't breathe. Outside, sirens wail and fade. Inside, only stillness remains. Just the blinking cursor. And Cheng. Still here. Still waiting. It came late. Not with a bang, but a whisper tucked beneath a video no one had watched in weeks. A single comment. No likes. No replies. The gold's in Long Tien, but no one makes it back. Cheng leaned forward, his face lit only by the pale blue glow of his screen. For a moment, he didn't blink. The words felt old. Heavy, like they had been waiting. Long Tien, a name he hadn't heard in years. Not since his grandfather's bedtime stories about cursed trails, vanished caravans and treasures buried so deep the earth itself tried to forget them. He whispered it aloud, and something shifted. In the room. In him. He didn't know it yet, but the journey had already begun. The tuk-tuk sputtered to a stop, coughing dust into the amber light of early evening. Cheng stepped down slowly, camera bag slung over one shoulder, the other hand shielding his eyes from the setting sun. Vientiane opened up before him like a faded postcard. Hazy mountains in the distance, temple spires catching the last light, and the steady rhythm of motorcycles weaving through traffic like fish in a stream. The air was thick with heat, dust, and the smoky sweetness of grilled meat drifting in from a street vendor nearby. It was beautiful, foreign, alive, and nothing like the still, suffocating silence of his apartment back in Merced. He paused on the curb, listening, watching. The journey had a heartbeat now, and it was getting louder. She was already waiting, leaning against a dust-streaked dirt bike, arms crossed, sunglasses catching the sun just right. A silver Hmong necklace hung around her neck, bright, intricate, and unmistakably traditional, resting over a worn band tee that had seen its share of backroads and border crossings. Leah Jiang didn't need to say a word. Her smirk said enough. Cheng stumbled off the tuk-tuk, juggling his camera bag and a tripod that refused to collapse. She watched him with the quiet amusement of someone used to being 5 steps ahead. "You're late," she said, voice sharp but smooth. And, overloaded, he opened his mouth to respond, probably something defensive, maybe even witty. But the words never quite made it out, because in that moment he knew, she wasn't just a guide, she was the key. And she'd been waiting a lot longer than he had. The dirt bike roared to life with a cough and a growl, kicking gravel as it launched. Cheng held on tight, arms wrapped around the gear strapped between them. His knees pressed against the frame as Leah steered them off the paved road and into something older. The trail narrowed quickly, winding through a dense wall of green where vines curled like fingers, and the air hung heavy with the scent of wet leaves and earth. Behind them the city faded, ahead Xaisomboun. The mountains rose like giants through the mist, half seen, half guessed, ancient, watching. The road was rough, and the silence between them even rougher. Only the engine filled the space, rattling through thoughts neither spoke aloud. Cheng glanced over Leah's shoulder, then to the path ahead. Whatever Long Tien was, it was getting closer. And the jungle had already started to whisper. The fire crackled low, sending golden sparks drifting into the night like tiny prayers. They sat cross-legged beneath a sweep of stars. The jungle hushed around them as if even the trees leaned in to listen. Leah passed him a bowl sticky rice, grilled river fish, and something spicy and unfamiliar. He nodded in thanks and tried to say it in Hmong. "You at Sog?" It came out mangled, hesitant, almost brave. Leah froze mid-bite, then burst into laughter, not cruel, but bright, full of surprise. She leaned in and gave his shoulder a light shove. "Close," she said, smiling, "but you just thanked me for fire ants." Cheng groaned, laughing too, rubbing the back of his neck. For a moment, the journey disappeared. The weight, mystery, and danger all faded into the soft glow between them. Leah's smile lingered a second longer than it needed to, and Cheng didn't look away. The fire was down to glowing coals. In its light, the old map looked like something torn from time. It was hand-drawn, and the ink faded. It had been created 100 ways, spread across a bamboo table. It trembled faintly in the breeze. Cheng traced a finger toward the eastern edge, where the mountains turned harsh and the roads disappeared. There, near the fold, was a crude X. "Long Tien," he said, quiet, certain. Leah didn't answer at first. Her eyes stayed on the map, but her focus slipped, like memory was pulling her somewhere else. Then she looked away, just for a second. When she turned back, her nod was slow, heavy. "Yeah," she said, "that's where people stop coming back." The jungle seemed to lean in again, and the coals cracked like warning signs. Morning came slow and silver. Mist clung to the trees like breath that refused to leave. High above, the jungle canopy shifted in uneasy silence, branches creaking, birds strangely quiet. They walked in a single file now. Cheng is behind Leah. The path was barely a trail, swallowed by vines and time. Then, they saw them. Strips of tattered cloth tied to the trees. Weather-worn, colorless, fluttering weakly in the breeze. Each one marked a prayer, or a warning. Leah slowed. Her voice dropped. "They say the spirits don't like visitors." Cheng swallowed hard. The jungle felt different here. Heavier, like it remembered everything. He glanced up. The trees didn't move, but they watched. And the air. It no longer belonged to them. They found it just as the jungle began to stir. A wall of vines, thick and green, parting to reveal the shape of something ancient. The cave's mouth yawned wide beneath the moss-covered stone, its edges swallowed in shadow. It was silent, waiting. The morning sun barely reached this far, just a thin shaft of light cutting through the canopy, dancing across the earth like a blessing or a warning. Cheng stepped forward slowly and carefully. He raised his flashlight, the beam catching on damp rock and then vanishing into black. For a moment his pendant shifted, a piece of carved jade swinging against his chest. The light struck it just right. His reflection blinked back at him, small, uncertain. Behind him, Leah said nothing. In front of him, the dark breathed, and the cave waited to be remembered. The cave swallowed the sound. Footsteps echoed dull against stone as they moved deeper, past hanging roots and walls slick with condensation. Then there it was, half buried beneath dirt and bone-colored rubble, a rusted crate, metal, military, decades old. Cheng knelt beside it. His breath was shallow, hands coated in dust. The hinges groaned as he forced it open. Inside, gold, stacked bars, dull with age but unmistakable. Each was stamped with an old military emblem, its edges worn, but still sharp enough to cut through time. Beneath them, passports, dozens, water-damaged, brittle, and photos. Black and white snapshots of young soldiers smiling into a sun that no longer shined. Cheng's hand trembled as he lifted the first gold bar. It felt too heavy for its size, like it carried more than weight. Behind him, Leah whispered, "This wasn't supposed to be real." But it was. And now they'd touched it. There was no turning back. He didn't hear her move. 1 second, Cheng was talking, trying to make sense of the names, the faces, and the gold. The next is silence. He turned. And there she was. Leah, pistol raised, eyes cold, the fire from the night before gone. No trace of laughter, no warmth in her stance, just precision. "Put it down," she said. Calm, final. Cheng froze mid-sentence. The bar of gold still in his hand suddenly becomes heavier. The cave seemed to shrink around him, walls pressing in, air thinning. Realization hit slow, cruel. This wasn't just about legends. She hadn't just been a guide. The past wasn't buried anymore. And now, it wanted payment. The light beam was thin, just enough to paint the exit's edge. Then it vanished. The stone door slammed shut with a thunderous finality, dust pouring from the ceiling in a slow, mocking curtain. Cheng lunged too late. Darkness swallowed the cave, thick and complete. Only his flashlight remained one flickering eye in a sea of black. He spun, calling out her name. Nothing, just the sound of his voice bouncing back. Too fast, too close. The gold sat untouched on the ground, but it might as well have been poisoned. Betrayal clung to the air like smoke. His breath quickened, alone, trapped, and somewhere beyond the beam of light, something moved. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a wound, narrow, jagged, carved through rock like the earth itself had split from pain. Cheng dragged himself forward, inch by inch. Dirt caked his face. Sweat stung his eyes. One arm clutched his side where stone had torn through cloth and skin. His camera shattered, a dead eye hanging from its strap. He didn't stop, couldn't, breath ragged, muscles shaking. But something burned behind his eyes. Not fear anymore, something sharper, a headlight, thin, faint, but real. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, the stone biting into his palms like a test. And somewhere behind him, deep in the cave's throat, the dark began to shift again. Dusk stretched long across the river, painting the water in bruised gold and fading lavender. Leah sat on the bank, knees drawn in, her back to the world. The journal lay beside her, worn leather, stained at the corners, its pages curled from damp. She hadn't opened it, not yet. Cheng stepped out of the trees, slow and unsteady, every muscle aching from the cave's grip. She didn't turn, but he knew she heard him. Her shoulders stiffened just slightly. The pistol was gone. Or maybe just out of sight. He stopped a few paces back. Let the silence breathe, let the river speak for them. "I didn't mean for it to go that way," she said finally, voice quiet, brittle. Cheng didn't answer right away, not with words. Instead, he sat down beside her. Not close, not far. And for a moment, they just watched the river forget everything. The river moved slowly like it was listening. Leah's fingers trembled as she picked at the edge of the journal. Still unopened, her voice came low, barely above a whisper. "My father, he was one of the last. A guard. Not for the gold, but for the story behind it." She blinked hard, looked away. They made a pact, those soldiers, to hide it, to keep it from being swallowed by the wrong hands. He thought they could bury the past, but it buried him instead. Tears welled in her eyes, silent and stubborn. "I didn't come for the treasure. I came to protect what was left of him." A long pause stretched between them, fragile, sacred. Cheng reached into his pocket, said nothing. He pulled out the jade pendant and set it gently on the ground between them. No accusations, no demands, just truth, shared. And for a moment, the river carried it away, quiet and whole. The jungle pressed close, dense with heat and the hush of unseen eyes. Cheng's hands were calloused and blistered from the digging, but he never paused. Beside him, Leah moved in rhythm, deliberate, wordless. Between them lay the crate, bound in worn canvas and memory. The same crate that once ignited war would now be buried in silence. With care, they lowered it into the earth, like a coffin, for a chapter they dared not revisit. Leaves rustled overhead as the wind stirred, whispering secrets through the canopy. Shadows danced across their faces, painting grief where words could not reach. Sweat mingled with the dirt on their skin, regret mingled with resolve in their hearts. Leah stared at the grave. "It should have stayed lost," she said, voice low. Cheng didn't answer. The past didn't deserve words, only the final thud of soil. And the vow, silent but unbreakable. Let it never rise again. The airport hummed with departures, with promises of elsewhere. Cheng stood at the glass doors, passport in hand, heart somewhere between gates and ghosts. He turned just once. There she was. Leah didn't wave. She never did things halfway, never played at farewells like they were anything less than sacred. She stood at the curb, still as stone, holding a folded letter in her hands, tea-stained at the corners, creased from nights of hesitation. The same letter he once left beneath her door. Their eyes met across the distance. Not a word passed. Not a smile. Not a tear. Only the soft, impossible weight of everything they'd buried, and everything they hadn't dared to say. The loudspeaker called his flight. He lingered one breath longer. And then he walked. Behind him, the engines roared to life. In front of him, the world awaited, but somewhere in between, the past held on, folded gently in her hands. Not a goodbye. Just not the end. Chin sat alone in his Merced apartment. The walls were bare now, maps gone, memories boxed. Only the hum of the fridge kept him company. On his screen, the title blinked once before settling, "The Treasure We Buried." He clicked upload. The view count climbed instantly. Comments poured in, wild theories, questions, disbelief. But Cheng didn't read them. He just watched the numbers rise, expression unreadable. The jungle was far behind him now, but a part of it still clung to the air, to the edges of the frame. Outside, dusk spread quietly over Merced. He closed the laptop, home again. But never the same. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Cheng sat by the window, city lights flickering below. His phone buzzed once. There was no name, just a message, a string of numbers, latitude, longitude, coordinates etched in code, like a voice from the trees. He stared at it. The jungle hadn't finished with him after all. Outside, the wind picked up dry, but it carried something ancient. A whisper, maybe. Or a dare. Cheng leaned back, eyes sharp. A slow smirk curved his lips. Part 2? Maybe it was never buried for good. A wide road. Fog curled low over Merced's morning streets. Cheng walks alone, boots soft on wet pavement. The world is hushed, just the faint call of birds somewhere behind the mist. His camera hangs at his side. The old pendant swings gently in his hand, catching a glint of pale light. No words, no music, only the whisper of wind and something else, calling. From beyond the fog, beyond the frame, he doesn't look back. The screen lingers, fades to black. End of part 1. Some journeys don't end, they echo, through time, memory, and the silence between two heartbeats. Cheng went looking for treasure, and found something far rarer: truth, betrayal, and the weight of a legacy too sacred to sell. Now the cave is buried again. The compass points nowhere. The pendant rests warm against his chest. But in the hush between uploads and the quiet before dawn, whispers still rise from Long Tien. And when the wind shifts, he'll know. The story isn't over.